Welcome to Crete, Greece's largest island and one of the most diverse, historically rich destinations in Europe. A land of dramatic mountains, turquoise lagoons, ancient olive groves, and Venetian harbor towns. Whether you're a foodie, a history lover, a beach chaser, or an adventure seeker, Crete delivers on every front. Here, every road leads to another unforgettable view, or a fantastic meal. They say, if you want to understand Greece, go to the mainland. But if you want to understand life, go to Crete. Over 7 days, we road-tripped across the island, from the wild beaches of the west to the historic cities of the east, past mountain villages, gorges, and charming seaside towns. We'll share our exact itinerary and the places we loved. So, buckle up! Crete is bigger than you think. Whether you're planning your own adventure or just curious about this beautiful Greek island, this video is for you. We kicked off our Cretan adventure in the most fitting way possible by immersing ourselves in olive oil culture. Crete produces roughly a third of all Greek olive oil and is considered one of the finest olive oil regions in the world. So it felt right to start here. Terra Creta is one of Crete's most acclaimed olive oil estates, producing award-winning extra virgin olive oils, and the estate is known for its commitment to single-origin, traceable, high-quality production. Even though tours had wrapped for the season, a lovely woman in the shop took us under her wing and gave us a fantastic olive oil tasting class. You warm the cup in your palm, covering it with your other hand to bring the oil to body temperature, then sip it with an exhale to let the aromas bloom. And yes, there's a flavor wheel for olive oil, where notes of fresh grass are prized, and baby vomit and horse stable are real negative attributes. The gold standard is acidity. Terra Creta's Grand Cru oil has just 0.2% acidity. We bought several bottles of olive oil and I absolutely love it. If you're visiting Terra Creta outside of peak season, tours may have ended, but the shop is still worth the stop. We took the longer mountain route south toward Palaiochora. The winding road crests over the spine of Crete, revealing layer upon layer of olive-covered hills tumbling toward the Libyan Sea. Goats everywhere, tiny olives dotting every branch. It's one of those drives that makes you pull over every 5 minutes. Palaiochora is a charming, laid-back town perched on a narrow peninsula facing the Libyan Sea. We wandered through its streets, lined with cafes and small shops, strolled the seafront promenade, and made our way to the other side of the peninsula, where a wide, sandy beach was drawing sunbathers and swimmers. There are several beaches in town where you can go for a swim. Kandanos is a quiet mountain village. There is not much to see there, but if you're driving through, this little pastry shop is reason enough to stop. They're known for their galaktoboureko, a traditional Greek milk custard pastry soaked in syrup, and for their goat milk ice cream. This olive oil and wine tasting experience came highly recommended online, but didn't live up to the hype. The olive oil tasting was limited to just 2 oils, the presentation was weak, and the wines were not great, though the late harvest Cabernet Sauvignon was decent. The experience felt tailored to cruise ships and overpriced for what was offered. This was the unexpected emotional highlight of the day. The monumental olive tree of Vouves is believed to be the oldest olive tree in the world, carbon dated to at least 2,000 years old. And some estimates put it closer to 3,000 or 4,000 years old. In other words, this tree was alive during the height of ancient Greek civilization. We arrived in the late afternoon and, for a while, had the tree entirely to ourselves. I walked slow circles around it, studying its massive, twisted trunk, its hollowed-out core, its ancient, gnarled branches, heavy with olives. This was one of those rare moments where you feel the weight of history. Next door, the Free Olive Tree Museum of Vouves is housed in a traditional stone building. It's a small free museum preserving the tools of olive cultivation as they were used for thousands of years. The region around Vouves has more ancient olive trees per square kilometer than anywhere else in Crete. It was interesting to learn how deeply this land and its people are entwined with the olive. Before leaving, we grabbed some baklava and orange cake from the little cafe next to the tree, a perfect end to an olive-soaked first day. Today, I am taking you to the wild, dramatic coastline of western Crete. Balos Lagoon, tucked into the remote northwestern tip of Crete, is regularly cited as one of the most beautiful beaches in Europe and among the top lagoons in the world. Its surreal combination of turquoise, emerald, and milky blue water comes from the lagoon's incredibly shallow depths. The colors shift and swirl as the light changes throughout the day. Getting there is half the adventure. 7 kilometers of rocky dirt road hug the edge of a cliff. You need to drive slowly, protect your tires, and watch out for goats. When you get to the parking lot, there's a 30-minute hike down to the beach. There's a scenic overlook with fantastic views over the beach. We also discovered a second ridge viewpoint off the main trail that was even more stunning. You can also reach Balos by boat from Kissamos port. The boat trips are popular but crowded, and you'll miss the panoramic viewpoints at the top. Falasarna is one of Crete's longest and most celebrated beaches, a sweeping arc of soft golden sand backed by dramatic mountains at its southern end. It's a Blue Flag awarded beach with a long history. The ancient city of Falasarna, a major Minoan and Hellenistic port, once stood nearby. Archaeological ruins are still visible in the area. There's free parking and a free train that takes you to the beach and back to the parking lot afterward. We took the coastal road from Falasarna to Elafonisi. There was no traffic on this winding road, and the views are beautiful. Elafonisi is one of those places that earns every superlative. This shallow tidal lagoon is connected to a small island by sandbars you can walk across in ankle-deep water. The beach is famous for its pink-tinged sand. The color comes from crushed shells and pink coral mixed into the white sand. We arrived around 5 in the afternoon and scored parking right next to the beach. The light was golden, the crowds were thinning, and the whole place felt magical. We walked across to the little island, explored the sandbars, and soaked up the atmosphere. The beach has bar service, showers, umbrellas, and sunbeds, perfect for a full-day visit. Elafonisi is best as a full-day destination. Arrive early to claim a good spot. Late afternoon visits like ours are also lovely as the crowds thin and the light softens. Today's route is taking us over the White Mountains to the south coast and back. En route, you will see tiny roadside chapels overlooking the valley, old olive groves, and more mountain views fading into the distance. Sougia is a tiny, unspoiled village, accessible via a beautiful mountain crossing through the White Mountains. It has a single strip of tavernas and cafes facing a long rocky beach, pebbles rather than sand. But the water is that extraordinary Cretan blue that makes you forget about the sand. And for rock lovers like me, you are sure to find beautiful treasures on this beach. From Sougia, we drove up into the White Mountains to Ziloskalo, the trailhead for the famous Samaria Gorge hike. At 1,230 meters elevation, the viewpoint here looks down into one of Europe's longest gorges, 16 kilometers end to end, with sheer limestone walls dropping hundreds of meters to the narrow path below. The scenery was dramatic and misty, clouds drifting across the peaks, pine trees, and a million goats. We had planned to do the hike, but skipped it at the last moment. Honestly, even just seeing the trailhead viewpoint was worth the drive up. The gorge itself looked utterly wild. For those of you who want to hike the Samaria Gorge, plan a full day. I will add some information in the description of this video. Seitan Limania translates roughly to Devil's Harbors, a fitting name for this dramatic narrow inlet carved into the cliffs of the Akrotiri Peninsula. The turquoise water glows an almost supernatural color against the white limestone. The road to Seitan Limania is paved, and parking is free. The hike down is steep and rocky. Wear proper footwear and be careful. Stavros is a gentle, horseshoe-shaped bay with soft sand, calm, shallow water, and a relaxed, local atmosphere. Film fans may recognize it. This is where part of the final scene of Zorba the Greek was filmed in 1964. It still has that timeless, quietly cinematic quality. We had a beer at the beach bar and soaked in the view. Chania is considered one of the most beautiful cities in Greece, and its old town, built largely during the Venetian occupation, is the crown jewel. The harbor is lined with pastel-colored buildings, their reflections shimmering in the water. The old Venetian lighthouse at the end of the breakwater is one of the most photographed images of Crete. We explored the Mosque of the Janissaries, now used as an exhibition space. We walked by the Venetian fortress and wandered the narrow alleys of the old town, where bougainvillea spills over balconies and small shops sell handmade pottery, jewelry, and art. Tonight, we are having dinner at To Antikristo, one of Crete's most singular culinary experiences. Located well off the beaten path, this restaurant specializes in a traditional Cretan cooking method called To Antikristo. Large cuts of meat are cooked upright around the central fire, slowly, for hours. Zoran, the owner, invited Mike to the kitchen to see the setup. The fire, the hanging cuts of meat, the heat, it's a serious operation. Curious what we ordered? Watch Mike's Cretan food guide. If you want to eat here, reserve in advance via email. And specifically request the To Antikristo. It's the whole point of going. Ask Zoran about the kitchen. He may let you peek behind the curtain. Rethymno's Venetian fortress, the Fortezza, is one of the largest and best preserved in the Mediterranean. Built in the 16th century to defend against Ottoman raids, it sits dramatically on a promontory above the harbor, offering sweeping views of the coastline. The city below has Venetian architecture, minarets, and narrow streets bustling with activity. Rethymno also has a very long sandy beach stretching along the entire north face of the city, several kilometers of it. It's a fairly commercial beach, with many restaurants, bars, and shops along the main roads. Heraklion is Crete's capital and largest city, busier and more urban than Chania or Rethymno, but full of remarkable history for those who look. Crete was under Venetian control from 1204 to 1669, longer than anywhere else, and Heraklion is full of Venetian legacy. We explored the central market, a bustling walking street with shops selling everything from spices to leather goods, and discovered some wonderful Venetian monuments along the way. The Bembo fountain, built in the 1550s. This is Heraklion's oldest public fountain, incorporating an ancient Roman sarcophagus. The Morosini fountain, built by a Venetian governor in 1628, this lion-guarded fountain was the centerpiece of the city's water system. The Venetian loggia, once the exclusive meeting hall of Venetian nobility, now beautifully restored as Heraklion's city hall. We also visited the Cathedral of St. Titus, a fascinating building that has served as a mosque and then a Greek Orthodox church, with its stained glass casting rainbow light across the altarpiece. Along the waterfront, ruins of the Venetian shipyards, salt storage warehouses, and water cisterns hint at Heraklion's former importance as a Mediterranean naval power. I should mention one more place, Pesquezi, one of Heraklion's most acclaimed restaurants, dedicated to authentic, historically grounded Cretan cuisine, using heirloom ingredients and ancient recipes. Getting a reservation is notoriously difficult. Our hotel pulled strings to get us in. To hear about the standout dishes, watch Mike's Cretan food guide. To eat here, book Pesquezi well in advance via their website. If you can't get a reservation, ask your hotel. They sometimes have better luck. We spent the morning walking the long breakwater of Heraklion's Venetian harbor. Calm water, no wind, spectacular morning light. The Cool's fortress dates to the 16th century and was built by the Venetians to protect the harbor from Ottoman attack. It's one of the finest examples of Venetian military architecture in the Mediterranean. Along the breakwater, we found graffiti art, a mermaid statue, and a harbor marker at the very end, with views back over the whole city. A peaceful and beautiful morning walk. On our walk back, we stumbled into the start of a breast cancer awareness walk. Hundreds of people in pink, with drummers performing in the street. A joyful, energetic surprise. The Heraklion Archaeological Museum is one of the oldest museums in Greece, and a remarkable archaeological museum. It houses the most comprehensive collection of Minoan art and artifacts on Earth, the Minoans being the Bronze Age civilization that dominated Crete from roughly 2700 to 1100 BC, and whose culture was among the most sophisticated in the ancient Mediterranean world. The museum is extensive. Allow at least 2 hours, ideally 3. Highlights include the elaborate Minoan frescoes from Knossos, the largest Bronze Age site in Crete, the famous Vaistos disc, an undeciphered clay disc from around 1700 BC, one of archaeology's great mysteries, and an extraordinary collection of gold jewelry, carved gemstones, and ceremonial objects that reveal just how culturally advanced the Minoans were. Far better than we expected, honestly. After spending time in the museum, reward yourself with a galaktoboureko, the traditional Greek custard pastry. You can find them in every cafe and pastry shop in town. Today, I am taking you around the eastern end of the island. Spinalonga is one of the most haunting sites in Crete. This tiny island was one of Europe's last functioning leper colonies, operating from 1903 to 1957. Before that, it housed a formidable Venetian fortress that successfully repelled the Ottomans for 45 years after the rest of Crete had fallen. Victoria Hislop's best-selling novel, The Island, brought Spinalonga international attention, and it remains one of Crete's most visited historical sites. The round-trip boat from the village of Plaka costs 12 euros, with a 20 euros entry fee to the island. We opted to view it from the Plaka Pier, a charming tiny waterfront village with crystal-clear water and excellent restaurants. Plaka itself is worth a stop, even if you don't visit the island. The road towards Seitan climbs high above the sea, and at one point, the views become genuinely extraordinary, looking hundreds of meters straight down to the coastline below. We pulled over. You will too. Near the village of Lastros, a sign on Google Maps leads you down a short path to another ancient olive tree, far less visited than Vouves, almost hidden, with room for only a car or two at the pullout. There's a small posted sign and a tiny roadside chapel. We found the tree and gave it a big hug. Yes! It's filled with happiness.
I'm happy.
Seitan is a relaxed, authentic seaside city at the far eastern end of Crete. Not heavily touristy, just a real Cretan town with a port, waterfront restaurants, and a proud tradition of olive oil production. The Seitan olive oil is among Greece's protected designations of origin. We bought a bottle to bring home. Petra, on the south coast, is the southernmost city in Europe, closer to Africa than to Central Europe, and with weather to match. It's also the only city in Crete to have been occupied by all major historical powers: Minoans, Romans, Byzantines, Venetians, and Ottomans. The small Venetian fortress on the waterfront dates to the 13th century. Mike had heard of a family restaurant on this side of the island he wanted to try, so we drove to Taverna Aia Paraskevi. Located near the village of Christos, this family-run taverna has no English menu, just a chalkboard menu in Greek. The chef took us to the fire to show us what was cooking, so we could make our selection. No one spoke English, but we felt welcomed. We got a free starter of bread, fresh tomatoes, cheese, and cabbage rolls. Then, a mix of vegetarian dishes, dolmads, rice-stuffed tomato, more cabbage rolls, and a pork shank with oven-roasted potatoes. Complimentary dessert, fried pita with cheese, drizzled with cinnamon and honey, plus raki. All of this for 25 euros. On our last day on the island, we squeezed in a last drive to a couple of mountain villages we wanted to visit. Anoskeli clings to the slopes of Mount Ida at over 750 meters elevation, the highest village in Crete, and one of the most fiercely independent. It has a long history of resistance. The village was twice destroyed. by the Ottomans and by the Nazis, and twice rebuilt. It's known for its traditional music, distinctive costumes, and particularly its weaving and lyra music traditions. The upper village around Agios Georgios Square has a tiny church with a lovely cafe out front. The lower square pays homage to Nikos Silouris, the beloved Cretan singer whose music is a cultural touchstone on the island. We bought some local thyme honey. Cretan thyme honey is considered among the finest in the world. Just down the mountain from Anogia, the tiny village of Axos holds a little gem, Logos Craftware, a shop selling genuinely handmade items, particularly beautiful pieces carved from olive tree wood. The coasters and earrings we bought there remain among our favorite souvenirs of the trip. The family running the shop was wonderfully warm, the kind of interaction that makes slow travel so worthwhile. Crete is a wonderful island with lots to do and see. The best time to visit is from May to June, and in September and October. You'll miss the peak crowds and heat, while still getting good weather, open beaches, and warm enough water for swimming. We visited the island in mid-October, at the very end of the season. The weather was perfect, warm sunny days, quiet roads, and the water was still just swimmable enough. The easiest way to get around is by renting a car. Public transport exists, but is limited. Crete is the largest Greek island, and if you want to explore the entire island, you'll need at least 1 to 2 weeks. However, if you focus on just one region, you can visit in 3 to 4 days. We planned our trip with 5 nights in Chania and 3 nights in Heraklion. Crete has its own distinct cuisine, separate from mainland Greek food. We loved it! The food was a definite highlight of our visit. Happy travels! Crete awaits.